Great, thank you all. So we'll begin today first by thanking everyone for joining us here at Steep Hill Beach on the Crane Estate. This is one of our most visited and beloved properties, and you can see why as you look over to this beautiful view today. And want to just thank and acknowledge everybody who's really been involved in this report, and also here today to really that I know are champions of coastal resilience and addressing climate change. I want to first thank Secretary Theoharides for being here today. It's really great to have your presence and your support and your leadership, as well as the administration. I want to thank Senator Tarr as well, who I know I've seen in multiple meetings all around the coast. So great to have your leadership and championship as well. Representative Hill, thank you as well. I know you're right there with Senator Tarr, and it's great to have you here today representing this area. We also have Tony Marino, our Ipswich town manager, who knows all too well some of the challenges of coastal communities, but thank you. You've been a great partner with us at the trustees. And also I'd like to thank Breckenridge and Peter Coffin, who's with us today, who's also the chair of our board. We're really thankful for the support and sponsorship to make this report possible. And I'm also happy to say that we have some of our project team here as well, Eric Nelson, who's our data consultant, and Brittany from Woods Hole Group. We don't have all our project team here, and we've got Jocelyn Forbush, our executive vice president, who will speak after me. Christine Boynton, my co-project lead on the report, who knows what it's like now to put one of these reports together. It was a lot of work, but really great opportunity. So what I want to talk about today is that with this report, we have really a unique moment in time where we're actually thinking about the climate in the future and how it will affect our coasts. We're looking at what is happening in communities today, and we really want to use this as a conversation starter, really a platform to begin to move to the future, because I think we can all recognize there's a lot more that needs to be done. Now, as we stand here today looking at this view, it's really hard to imagine what the future might be like in terms of climate. It is just so beautiful, and it's one of the areas along this whole North Shore coast that we talk about in the report. These beautiful barrier beaches, the Great Marsh itself, which is one of the largest marsh systems in the East Coast, which is magical, incredible place, so rich with wildlife and fish and shellfish. We have beautiful historic waterfronts, charming towns, working waterfronts and communities all along the North Shore. And, you know, these are places that people visit. They make their livings here. It's just inspiring. And it's one of the places people come here for recreation. 350,000 people come to this beach alone every year. And this is just one of the many beaches. So we're really going to take a look at what those impacts are to all these beautiful places up and down the North Shore. And one of the things that we wanted to focus on, as you look at a stunning backdrop like this, is what is coming. How are these places going to be impacted? We looked at specifically sea level rise, and we looked at storms. Those are really the two things that will accelerate most from climate that we wanted to focus on. And it was really kind of what started us on this journey with the trustees when we had a coastal vulnerability assessment completed 3 years ago of all our coastal properties, and it really made us think about what is coming and what we need to plan for. But there's also what's already happened. I think many of us are already seeing these changes today. And if you look at Crane Beach and look historically at the shoreline maps, we've lost 84 football fields of beach here just at Crane Beach alone. And you can imagine that if you're a small beach hemmed in by seawalls and developments, say like Long Beach and Rockport, you don't have much room to go if you're a very small pocket beach. If you think about some of the things that we're already seeing today, we want to take a look and say, what do we need to prepare for in the future? And there are mounting challenges. I know you all know about that on the coast, and we could have, in a State of the Coast, covered many other things like ocean pollution, warming, global warming and ocean warming, acidification. We could have talked about development and pollution, and we do touch on all of these things, but we really want to think about, again, flooding events and erosion, because that's what's going to touch all of us along the coastline today. Just to give you a sense, when we looked at the modeling data, we're seeing that changes will be really happening between 2050 and beyond, but we have some time before 2050, but even 2030, we're seeing effects that are really increasing. So we have a period of time over the next 5 to 10 years, and even the 30 years, which is like the life of a mortgage, to make some decisions, make some smart choices. And so we hope that this report will begin to urge action and really call out ways that we can all work together. We used modeling data from Woods Hole Group, which was really state of the art, and also data from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the various public available data, which was great for us. And what we found is that over the next 30 years, sea level will rise by 1 foot, and over the next 50 years by 3 feet. Storms will be stronger. They'll have more precipitation, more surge. And what that will mean is that, say today, a 1 in 100 year storm will be a 1 in 10 year storm in 2050. And so between the sea level rise and the storms, it's really going to start to make things become a lot more at risk at flooding. So this report takes a closer look at marshes, our beaches, the seawalls, the 55 miles of seawalls along our North Shore. It looks at developed areas, buildings, roads. It looks at coastal habitats, waterfront areas, and here's what we found. Some of you won't be surprised by this, but I think these are, for us, some insights that are pulling from a lot of different sources that bring it all together so we can see it in one framework, one sort of look and snapshot. So our beaches will likely continue to see shoreline loss and retreat, and we've seen that already historically. Places like Crane Beach have lost as much as 25 feet in 1 year. And you can imagine that the small, narrow beaches further, and those small beaches like Long Beach and Rockport, will really have trouble to be losing even smaller amounts of shoreline. Our marshes, all these marshes that you see, they will need to keep pace with sea level rise. They'll need to build an elevation, or we'll lose much of those marshes that we see today. Now, there are things that can be done to help them, and we talk about that in the report. We are seeing that things like shellfish, tidal flats, fisheries, species that could become extinct if we don't take care of those marshes. We could lose 2,000 acres of high marsh by 2050. And in many of these low-lying areas, we are seeing that potentially 600 North Shore buildings and properties could be flooded by 2030, and 7,000 daily flooded daily by 100-year storm events in 2070, 3,100 flooded daily in 2070, and 12,000 by storm events of a 1 in 100 year nature. And I can go through those again if you want, but we are seeing these places, neighborhoods, residences, some of you know where they are, that will have really some really difficult choices to make, which is, can they adapt and do designs that will accommodate this change, or do we have to retreat? And we have time now to start looking ahead. So we want to think about these places that we've mapped. We have it on our coastal microsite, which you can check out, this data and the mapping. And the coastal microsite is trusteesonthecoast.org. So I'd ask that you follow up if you want more information on that. We're looking at miles of roads that are going to be flooded daily or by storm events, and one of them, Argilla Road, that many of you used, all of you used to get here, will be flooded daily after 2030, and we're working with the town right now and the state to think about ways of using Argilla Road as a model. We'll talk more about that in the report as well. So with all these projected flooding impacts, what can we do? And in this report, I'm not going to go through all of them, but what I want to say is this report puts forth a broad spectrum of strategies that really urges communities, lawmakers, property owners, and other conservation organizations to act with urgency. I mean, we really have to think about what we're doing in the next 5 to 10 years, the next 30 years. What are we doing today? And I know that many of the communities are already starting to do that through their municipal vulnerability preparedness plans, but we're pushing this a little bit of a step further. And one of the things that we really want to note is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and that this report really demonstrates the need to come together in a coordinated, strategic way. And we really talk about the use of innovative, nature-based solutions, living shoreline techniques, marsh restoration, tidal restrictions, adaptive design, storm protection, coastal buyouts, and even flood recovery programs where retreat makes the most sense. So there's not a one-size-fits-all here, but we really think that this is an opportunity for all of us to think about how will we make choices that buy us time and that really prevent the things that could happen if we don't take action today. Now, one of the things that we think about at the trustees is that we're in a pivotal moment in time as an organization, and I think as a conservation organization. We have been in this place as an organization since 1891. There have been those moments in time in conservation where you really need to take action because there's a major change. This is one of probably the most significant changes in the century that I think we can all come together and make a difference for the next generation. When I think about my own 6-year-old son and what he'll inherit from us, we can start to do things today that secure our coast, make a better future, a more resilient coast. We cannot do this alone. We have to do it all together, which is so great to see everybody here because we are going to need everyone together. It's clear that the sum of our parts, the sum is stronger than our parts together, and we really want to highlight the need to come together and use this opportunity and this report as a conversation starter to consider the future and the choices that we make together. And with that, I want to give the next opportunity to speak to Jocelyn, our Executive Vice President, Jocelyn Forbush, to really talk about the trustees and our work in this area. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and it feels a little like fall. The days are going by. Really thrilled to have you all here this morning, and I want to start by thanking Tom, who with Christine have offered really extraordinary leadership for the trustees, and also thank the whole coastal team, which honestly includes every one of the communities that are featured in this report. Every one of them participated in this project, and of course thank the Secretary and the Coastal Zone Management Office, which was an important partner not only in the report but a number of other projects in our whole coastal initiative. Rep Hill, Senator Tarr, the town of Ipswich, Tony and Frank, who are here, who have just been extraordinary partners, again, on the coast in looking forward, as this report does, but in every day here at Crane Beach, trying to figure out the ins and outs of how we keep our open space open to the public and care for it as best as we can in days and moments like these and those that may be even more challenging to come. Hopefully all of you know a little about the trustees. We are now moving on to 130 years of protecting land all across the Commonwealth, and in that time a particular focus on our coast, on our coastal landscapes, and now protect and manage over 120 miles from right up here on the North Shore all the way out to the Cape and islands. We believe it is really truly a privilege to be able to steward these places and moreover to open them to the public for everyone to enjoy. And our work not only includes opening to the public and the experiences that we provide, but also that stewardship, the research, the adapting to what's happening right now, and really looking forward to the future, thinking about the challenges to come, and working with partners to adapt, to be ready. And so that's really what we're here today to celebrate, is the State of the Coast, the launch of what is not only an exceptional collection of information and data and analysis and participation on this issue, it's also really an important framework for us all to engage in conversation. It's not the word, the one word. There's a lot of ways to think about all of this information. There's a lot of issues, and we really look at it as a way for us to present that framework for discussion. So this is the beginning for us up here on the North Shore as far as the launch of this conversation. And we're looking forward to all of you engaging with us as we go. A complicated issue in every spot, a different issue in every spot, and so very much to come. We do recognize that as the managers of and caretakers of 120 miles of coast, which is the largest owner of coast, private landowner of coast in the Commonwealth, we have a sort of an outsized responsibility in our leadership and potential for caretaking here. And this report is really about asking our partners to join us, whether that's in conservation work. It's asking for them to join us and for all of us to be advocating for the funding and for the policies that really help us to make the change and innovate as we go forward. We are hoping to inspire, as I mentioned, inspire some of these great conversations that we need to have, and also inspire an understanding and an even deeper love of these places, which is so instinctive to us all. And lastly, it's a really great chance to share models of what's going on out there, what we're trying, and not only the trustees, but those partner communities. And if you read the report, it was a really great opportunity for us to learn what others are doing, what's working, what's not working, how can we promote that. Some of these things will work exceptionally well, some will be challenged along the way as we find solutions. And I think an important opportunity for us to share that conversation and promote those opportunities as we go. I do want to note, as Tom mentioned, we have a great partnership here with the town of Ipswich and addressing this issue on Argilla Road. That's an extremely important project, not only to us as it allows everyone to get to Crane Beach and Castle Hill, but also it's important to residents, to those who fish out here, to emergency personnel who get out here. A hugely important project, and we also think important in that it can be innovative. It can be, we are trying a new approach with the support of the state, and hope that that becomes a model that we can then share elsewhere, and that we can try in other parts of the state, benefiting the trustees as well as others. We are very committed to protecting this coastline that we have enjoyed, that we have loved, that we've played on, that we care for, and we will continue to do this work. This is the beginning for us, and the trustees is launching the State of the Coast as the first in a series. Next year, we will be, if Tom and Christine can stomach another good year of huge project development, we'll be launching our Cape and Islands report as well, and are looking to move along the coast, region by region, celebrating those unique elements of each of these areas, and also highlighting, in many cases, specific challenges and opportunities to address them. So as we continue to work here on the North Shore, you'll see us as we expand out across the coast in coming years. I want to, before I step away, give a very special thanks to Peter Coffin, who's president of Breckenridge Capital Advisors, and Breckenridge has been our lead sponsor for this report, so couldn't have done it without them. And we're excited to be partnering with them on some outreach and conversations to come. I also really want to give a shout out not only to the Secretary and Coastal Zone Management team, who have really been important thought partners for us in our entire coastal effort thus far, but this report in particular, and then Rep. Hill and Senator Tarr, who I know have been advocates on this issue, both with us but on your own and for your own communities independent. With that, it is my job to turn over, with my honor, Secretary Theoharides. Please join us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jocelyn, and good morning. It's wonderful to be here with partners and friends and colleagues. And I think to Jocelyn's points about partnerships and the role that the legislature and the communities have played working with the state and working with great partners like the trustees, we really have, I think, in Massachusetts, an unprecedented opportunity to address climate change in a way that can serve as a model for other communities and for other states across the country. Tom and Christina, great job on this report. Tom is someone who approached us early on when we were working on vulnerability assessments for all of our state assets, and we had a lot of great conversations about what that looks like, particularly for places where we share resources, whether it's our Department of Conservation and Recreation beaches that abut trustees' properties, and how we can share best practices and innovation around this, because we're learning as we go with climate change. We don't have all of the answers today. We actually need to experiment and use results and come up with new solutions. This report provides a really important summary, and I think a glimpse into the challenges that North Shore communities are currently facing, as well as what the potential challenges we'll see with climate change may bring to these towns. And we've seen a lot of that already. I think both Rep. Hill and Senator Tarr are familiar with some of the challenges you've seen in your communities and have been such terrific advocates bringing those stories back to the entire team of legislatures, so you can work on these issues and get communities the money and the solutions they need. But coastal communities are already facing up and down the coast the damaging effects of increasingly intense storms. These are harbingers of the types of climate change driven events that we're going to see and continue to face as a state. And I think 2020 has certainly been a year we've seen many challenges, but one of the ones that has stuck out to me is that today, in mid to late August, we're at the point where we're already halfway through the alphabet of named storms. The waters off the coast are very warm, and we have had a very, very active hurricane season, and that is something we expect to continue to see going forward. So for anyone here, this is not new. I think we've seen the impacts that climate change can have on our communities, both in the nor'easters of 2018, the drought we're experiencing now, the drought we saw in 2016. And Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito have made this a very large piece of their focus going forward, both on reducing emissions. The governor committed in his State of the Commonwealth back in January, which is hard to remember at this point, back in January, to getting to net zero by 2050, which sets us on a course with only 4 other states right now for having the most ambitious climate target. So reducing the causes of climate change right here in Massachusetts and developing a roadmap to hit those targets. And we really feel like it's important for us to hit our targets, and it's even more important for us to show leadership for how to get there to other states and other countries around the world. And then at the same time, this administration has invested $780 million in resiliency so far, looking to spend $1 billion by 2025. And so chasing that goal, again, with strong support from our partners in the legislature. The other piece I'd mention, and something Tom and Jocelyn both spoke to, is our Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness program. And that is this opportunity for the state to provide money and technical resources to communities, often working in strong partnership with groups like the Trustees of Reservations, Mass Audubon, and the Nature Conservancy, as well as many other land trusts and other conservation and community groups across the Commonwealth, to bring a community together to plan for their future. And it's about resiliency, it's about climate change, but it's also about what do you want your community to be as we venture into the next somewhat uncertain period of time when climate change is going to be a challenge, and how do we use this opportunity to look at the types of economic development we want, the types of natural resources we want, and the types of supports for our families and small businesses in our community. And since 2017, when we started the program, with great support from the trustees and great support from both of the legislators here, you were both at some of our very first meetings with your communities, and the North Shore in particular was an early adopter of this program. But we now are up to 89% of the Commonwealth will be enrolled, and we're excited to announce some of our new enrollees in September. But just a great testament, I think, to the willingness of communities to try something like this, and the spirit of our partners who have joined us and have helped to work to make this a better program, and a program that's gone from a $500,000 start year to now giving out $10 million on an annual basis, which is thanks very much to our partners in the legislature. So with that, I will congratulate Tom and the team for this report. Terrific effort, and I really look forward to spending a lot of time with it. And I will turn it over to someone who has been a true champion of coastal resiliency, as well as, to Jocelyn's point, of helping to keep our resources open during this time of pandemic when it's been so important to have access to these green spaces. Senator Tarr.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Secretary, and good morning. And I know that I join with all of us here this morning in thanking you for your leadership and welcoming you to the North Shore, because you have been such an instrumental partner in all of the things that we've been trying to accomplish. And your presence here today is just another affirmation of your commitment to building resilience and building good stewardship for the things that we care about on the coast and all across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I also want to say thanks to Tom and Christina for the great work that you've done. Any of us that have been involved in these kinds of things know just how tedious they can be sometimes in researching information and getting it right and making sure that we have the means upon which to make hard decisions. Because if there's anything that we've learned when it comes to coastal resilience and when it comes to issues of environmental change, there are a few basic truisms that cannot be ignored. And the first is they cannot be ignored. The second is we have to base what we do on facts and science and good information. The third is that we have to be proactive and not reactive. We have seen far too many times the consequences of not being proactive and watching us attempt to do things in the middle of a blizzard or a hurricane or a storm that don't benefit from engineering and planning and are not cost effective. And one of the last things that we know about this situation is that we cannot do it in isolation. We can't do it alone. And that's why it was about a decade ago that the communities of Salisbury and Newburyport wisely decided to create the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, with an understanding that nothing could happen unless everybody was at the table to be good stewards of what we were attempting to do. And since that time, the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, which I'm happy to be the chair of, so I have a little bit of bias, but that alliance has expanded to the Northeast Coastal Coalition, which now includes every community from Cape Ann to the New Hampshire border. And those two organizations have been effective for one reason alone, and that is that everybody sits at the table. Whether it be local officials, state officials, federal officials, local, state, and federal regulators, non-governmental organizations, and individual stakeholders. And so I'm particularly pleased with the way that the North Shore has responded to the challenge that is happening in front of us. And this report is a welcome contribution to that effort. And so a particular thanks to the trustees for your leadership. You know, it speaks volumes that as stewards of coastline and coastal properties, you are stepping up to the plate and not trying to say we're going to ignore this until we're in crisis. You're stepping up to the plate to say now is the time to get ahead of the situation and do what is required of us as stewards of these resources that are so critical to our quality of life. I mean, we all know when we came out here this morning how moved we have been to be in this beautiful place and to think about the fact that through the work of the trustees and others up and down the coast, these kinds of experiences are available to all of us. But they won't be if we fail to rise to the challenge of our changing environment. And they won't be if we make decisions that aren't based on good information and create opportunities for investment. And speaking of investment, we are so lucky to have this administration, which devised the vulnerability program to make investments in individual communities, but also has done other things like the dredging program and so many other things. But here's the thing. It's not only about money. It's also about regulation and permitting and doing things that are innovative. It's been said so many times that in this situation, we need new tools and new rules. And that's why, as we've thought so hard about what we've been doing, and with the help of the administration, we've been able to move literally tens of thousands of cubic yards of sand from clogged waterways like the Merrimack River onto places that need that sediment, like Plum Island. Those are the kinds of things we need to continue to do by working together. And we need to innovate, and there is no time to waste for that innovation. We know we can do it because we've started to do it. And when we talk about, Tom, the marshes, I think it's particularly important to think about the research that's being done right now to be able to use dredge sediment to elevate the marsh, to be able to outpace sea level rise. That research is being done here in Essex County as we speak. And there are so many other examples like living shorelines that we can look to. But it's going to require us to be bold. It's going to require us to act. And it's going to require us to do things differently than perhaps we've done them in the past. And when you're in that situation where you have to do those things, then you need to have a roadmap and you need to have information that you can rely on. And that is why this is so important. Because this fuels the conversation that we need to continue to have. And I also want to recognize Tony Marino because, you know, the municipalities are the building blocks of this effort, and we couldn't do it without great municipal leadership, and Tony and his colleagues on the North Shore have been providing that. So this is a momentous time. It's a momentous time when we think about the fact that we have been awakened, that we understand what we need to do, and that we have the capability to do it. This report is an affirmation of all of those things. So thank you so much to the trustees. And again, to Tom and Christina, we can't wait to invite you to the table with some of the organizations I've mentioned to put this into the discussion and to advance the discussion. And of course, to work with the administration to follow on the leadership that it's been providing, particularly through Secretary Therides. Now, I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you my legislative partner and friend, someone who has been a driving force behind the Northeast Coastal Coalition because he understands the importance of these issues to our present and to our future. So I'm really pleased to welcome him to the podium and to the microphone, State Representative Brad Hill.
Thank you, Bruce. The good thing about speaking almost last is everything has already been said that needs to be said. So I'm not going to stand up here too long, but I thought what I would do after giving my thanks, and boy am I grateful today, to the Secretary, to the Trustees of Reservation. Tom, we've read the report numerous times over the last few days, Senator Tarr and I. It is a wonderful report, filled with information that we needed and that we continue to need moving forward. The more information that we get as legislators and as local officials helps us to be able to address this very important issue. And let me be very clear. This is a very important issue, not only for our area, but for the entire East Coast, from Florida all the way up to Maine and up to Canada. And we are working with our partners in all of those states because this is a very important issue. Up until COVID-19, this was one of the top two issues that Bruce and I worked on for the last 6, 7, and 8 years. So I thought what I would do is share a couple of personal stories with you to let you know how important this issue is to us. Back in 2006, for everybody who doesn't remember, we had the Mother's Day storm. And if you remember in Ipswich, for my friends here, and Hamilton, we had 4 of our bridges get blown out to that Mother's Day storm because of the rush of water that went through downtown Ipswich and the flooding that took place. It was incredible, something I had never seen in my lifetime in the town of Ipswich and Hamilton. I grew up Hamilton, and as most of you know, we had a business here in Ipswich. So between the two towns, this is where I grew up. Senator Tarr and I, we laughed in this case because we called it a 100-year storm. Everybody from the locals to the states to the Fed, this is a 100-year storm. Unbelievable that we see this in our lifetime. Well, here it is 14 years later, and I think we've had 6 100-year storms since that time that we've needed to address, whether it be down at Plum Island, whether it be the town of Ipswich, or Manchester by the Sea, and certainly the city of Gloucester. These storms continue to happen in such a way that we have not been prepared to address the needs when they arise. The information in this report is going to help us to be able to address that and continue to address it as we have since 2006. Here's one of my personal stories for you. Grew up on Cranes Beach. We all did. My father, no longer with us, 87 years old, grew up on Turkey Shore Road, not far from here. Used to jump off the bridge over in Labor and Vane, as kids still do today. But they all came to Cranes Beach, of course. And the stories that I heard from his era was they used to have to walk out almost a quarter of a mile to get to the waters at Cranes Beach. It was a long walk. When I was a kid, 50 years ago, I probably had to walk out 100 yards, a little longer than that, to get to the water. Now when I go walking Cranes Beach, which I do often, the water line is right there a lot of the days. So over an 80 or 90 year period, we have seen the rising tides. This is a very important issue, not only just our area, but up and down the coast. And I'm thrilled that the trustees are going to be working with us moving forward to address this very important need. To the administration, I could talk for the next hour, I won't, on how great you have been. You talked about the amount of money that we have increased over the last 4 or 5 years. And we'll be at $1 billion in the next 2 to 3 fiscal years to help our cities and towns, our local partners, to address this important need. And we have addressed a lot of this already because of the efforts of the Baker-Polito administration. Just over in Manchester, and I'll talk very briefly about our experience with dredging. I think we had, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had $200,000 or $500,000 allocated for dredging for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Well, if you know what a dredging project costs, it's a lot more than $500,000. It's between $2 and $10 million, depending on the project. So what we decided to do, working with the administration, is said we are going to partner with our cities and towns. If our cities and towns are willing to do the planning and pay for it, get a company and pay for, get all the permits that are needed, the state's going to come up with the construction cost, or a lot of it, a good percentage of it. And over in Manchester by the Sea, 2 years ago, we were the model, the pilot program for that thought. The town did all the work it needed to do, and the state came up with the funds needed for phase 1 of the inner harbor for dredging. And what a difference that project made. These are the type of things that we're doing, partnering with our cities and towns, with the administration and the federal delegation. And I'll leave you with this last thought, and I think it's important to note, because sometimes us local officials get criticized because of partisan politics. I want you to know this, and it's true, and it has been for the 20 years that I've been your legislator. We have 4 Republican reps, and we have 4 Democratic reps, representing from Swampscott to Salisbury. And every single one of us, no matter what our party affiliation is, works together for the good of this issue. Our administration is a Republican administration working with a Democratic legislature. And the secretary spoke to you about how important the funds were and how much they were needed and how much we increased. That only worked because of the partnership between the 2 parties. This is not a partisan issue, despite how it's being sold by some nationally. This is an issue for all of us. And I want you to know that your delegation on the North Shore and in the Merrimack Valley are working as one team despite any partisan affiliation. And because of that, we are getting the funds that are so sorely needed by the administration. And you've already heard 2 or 3 times, we have been the leaders for the rest of the Commonwealth because of that partnership. And I'm proud to be able to stand before you and tell you this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue that needs to be addressed. It's being addressed despite all of that negativity you're hearing from other quarters of the world. So with that, I say thank you to the trustees, thank you to the administration, and I mean that. And to Senator Tarr, he knows this stuff inside and out. And he's been a great mentor to me over the years in helping me understand and learn about this issue, as it has been working with Tony and the towns and your partners and town administrators to make sure that this is an important address. This is now going to be a key piece moving forward of how to address this very important issue. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to introduce to you my local partner, Tony Marino from the town of Ipswich, who is our town manager, and has been doing a wonderful job with the DPW and with Frank and his cohorts down at the Public Works Department. Tony, thank you for the partnership you have with Senator Tarr and I, and we appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Marino.
Good morning, thank you. I like Brad will keep it short. I've learned long ago after following Bruce, I always try to keep my comments short. So, and that was quickly learned. I'll talk about the local municipal challenges. Recently, obviously with COVID, that's been taking up a lot of our time. But one of the challenges myself and other town managers and town administrators face is the competing priorities in the town. It's not just Ipswich. We've got our 8 miles of beaches, and we definitely deal with coastal resiliency and managing our harbors and rivers and all of it. But there's other needs. I mean, just this week I spent meeting time talking about a new public safety building and talking about making sure we hit our affordable housing number and creating affordable housing units in Ipswich. And it's all of those competing priorities and trying to find the funding, which is why the partnership with not only the administration, Senator Tarr's office, Rep. Hill, all of those are so valuable to us because we can't do it alone. We work closely with them and we work hard. I mean, Rep. Hill is in my office weekly asking me, do we need anything? And, how can they help? And we appreciate that. And I get multiple emails from Senator Tarr's office with updates on what's going on at the state level and the federal level. So we appreciate all of that. Just locally working on the Coastal Bank Restoration Project. We got CZM fundings for that from the administration. We appreciate that. Where you're looking to create, natural ways and to maintain our banks and our coastal bank restorations and things like that. I know in Essex, working with Brendan Zubricki, the town administrator over there, they're talking about the dredging projects and taking the dredging material and trying to rebuild the marshes over there. And he's had great luck with that project. So locally, we're doing a lot on coastal resiliency and maintaining all the issues we have here. The flooding that we talked about on Jeffries Neck Road and Argilla Road, between federal funds with FEMA grants and also the CZM grant that we got for Argilla Road. We appreciate all of those funds, and we're happy to contribute our piece to make that happen, to get to the design, fully designed plans, and then ultimately build that, because maintaining access not only for our residents but for Cranes Beach and keeping the 350,000 visitors that come here every year. So we're excited about that and keeping those projects alive and going. On the local level, again, we have what's called the Climate Resiliency Committee here in town. That started shortly after I got here. We created that committee, and I chair that committee along with Peter Johnson, who works for NOAA and lives here locally. He's been a great asset to the town. And one of the things we talk about is not only just reducing the carbon footprint, but also coastal restoration and climate resiliency. So Ipswich takes it very seriously. We've got a lot of active volunteers in town, and we appreciate that because with everything going on with COVID, they've been behind the scenes pushing me to make sure we keep these initiatives front and center. And, working with Rep. Hill and Bruce Tarr, that's happened, and we're happy about that. And lastly, I'll wrap up with just talking about the partnerships. I mean, that's been a theme here, and it's completely necessary. I mean, between the administration with Governor Baker and the Climate Coastal Management Group, Senator Tarr's office, Rep. Hill's office, the trustees. I probably meet daily now with Peter Pinciero locally to talk about Cranes Beach and all the issues we have here, and Tom O'Shea and he works closely with Frank Ventimiglia and here in town. So those partnerships are crucial, and I look to maintain them and make sure we keep all of the hard work and effort and momentum that we have moving forward here. So I will wrap up with that, and I just want to thank everybody, thank the trustees. I'm looking forward to, I will admit I haven't read all of the report yet, but I've read a good chunk of it, and I'm looking forward to distributing that. On behalf of the select board, I want to thank everybody for coming out today and using Ipswich as the hosting spot for this. We look forward to continued hard work with the trustees and all of the administrations to keep this going, and I'm looking forward to putting this report to good work. So thank you very much. And I think now I am introducing Peter Coffin with the trustees. He's going to come up in Breckenridge. So thank you, Peter. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Senator Tarr and Representative Hill and Secretary Theoharides. I've been part of the trustees, the governance of the trustees, since 2004, and I've seen a lot of great things accomplished. But now as chair, I am really, really thrilled by the collective efforts that the trustees, that this organization is bringing together, partnerships with communities like Ipswich and our conservation peers and the Commonwealth, using the best available science and modeling to respond to climate risk. As Jocelyn mentioned earlier, the trustees owns and protects some of the most iconic and spectacular coastal places in Massachusetts, but like other landowners, we're concerned about climate impacts. We've heard about the risks to health, safety, property, our natural and built environments, and the financial challenges in assessing climate impacts. This is especially true for municipalities who are on the front lines in coping and dealing with these risks and challenges. So, as mentioned, I not only serve as chair of the trustees, but I'm president of Breckenridge Capital Advisors, and we're the proud sponsor of this first State of the Coast report. We're doing this because we think it's important. It's important to us and our industry. It's important to the trustees and their members. It's important to the Commonwealth and its communities. But above all that, it's important to our families, our children, and future generations. So I founded Breckenridge 27 years ago, but it was about 10 years ago, coming out of the financial crisis, that we began to integrate an analysis of environmental, social, and governance factors into our research. We recognized that the markets needed to shift their investment horizon beyond the short term to think about these longer term risks and challenges. So as a bond manager, overseeing about $42 billion in municipal and corporate bond portfolios, that's especially important for us. And we know that communities that are doing a better job of addressing longer term risks are going to be better prepared to meet those challenges. And simply put, they're just going to be less risky investments. So we're going to be more inclined to buy their bonds. And we're not unique. The bond market, the markets in general, are beginning to take account of climate risk. And it is my opinion, my strong opinion, that the first tremors of climate risk are going to manifest themselves, are going to show up in the municipal bond market. And so that is why we think this report is so important. It provides an excellent foundation for action in identifying risks and opportunities with potential strategies for coastal resiliency and adaptation. This is a valuable resource for these 13 communities, but it's a great model and template, as we engage with communities broadly across the entire country. So in addition to the investment case that I just mentioned, all of us at Breckenridge care about supporting this because as a company, we want to be engaged and support the communities in which we live, work, and invest. And we try to do that with our philanthropy and our volunteerism and by supporting good research, such as this. And reflecting that commitment, Breckenridge is actually a certified B Corp and chartered in Massachusetts as a benefit corporation since 2013. So we're actually obliged to do this work and very proud to support it. As we've heard from Tom earlier and Christine, the time to respond to climate risk is now. There is no time to wait. And we can't do this alone. It'll require a shared imagination of ideas and approaches, including public-private partnerships that can bring these projects to fruition and to scale. I'm positive and confident about our potential to innovate and adapt, to create resilient communities for the future. And again, we're very, very pleased to have supported this State of the Coast report. Thank you all for your time, and Tom and Christine, thank you, and others, Jocelyn, Matt, for all your great work in pulling this together. And thank you all today again for your support today. And now I'd actually like to turn it back to Tom O'Shea. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. It's really great to have your leadership and support, and really energizing to have all of you today come together to talk about an issue we know as the trustees care about, but all of you care about. And after such an exhausting report, it's beautiful to sort of cap it all and launch it on such a beautiful day in your presence. And I know we're all going to work on this together. I really look forward to your follow-up and reading what you think about all of this, and happy to help and support your efforts as we go forward on coastal resilience and at a community level. And I have to say that what I heard today really now inspires me more than I already was, and it really gives me hope, and it really gives me a lot of positive optimism that we can actually do something to secure and really make a more resilient coast for the future. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful beach day. Maybe you'll get a chance to go to the beach, maybe not, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.